Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm taking a look at these Surging Sparks cards yet again, except today we're looking at them in the context of GLC. I haven't talked about GLC in a little while. I haven't been paying that much attention, but recently have been paying a little more attention and getting back into it. So I'm going to be talking about them, these cards within that context. Obviously, no EXs, we're not talking about those. If you don't know, GLC is a format where there are three rules, maybe four, depending how what you count as like the main rules. You have every deck is singleton, so only one copy of each card by name, and then you also have mono type decks, so all your Pokemon have to be of one type of the 10 types. I guess you could do fairy as well, but there aren't any new fairy cards. And then also your deck is non-rule box. There are no rule box cards at all. The term rule box card isn't really used, just rule box Pokemon, but you can't use ace specs either. And then no EXs, Radiance, none of that stuff. And then also it's expanded format, like card pool essentially. There's a different ban list, but the format is black and white on, so these cards will be in that format, and it is black and white on, so nothing older than that, and everything newer than that's legal unless it's specifically banned. But anyway, with that out of the way, let's take a look at these cards. And I haven't thought about too many of these cards. We do have Executor, which seems not great. You flip a coin for each energy attached to each actives. This could be like okay. It has decent HP and it's like a decent energy ramp, but it doesn't really synergize with too many other grass Pokemon either. Then we do have the Villain, and this one allows you to evolve each of your bench Pokemon, and it is a stage 2, but there are the Spewpa and Scatterbug, which you can just evolve instantly. So, well, instantly you can play it down instantly. It doesn't search it out. You still need all three cards in your hand, but that is kind of cool. You try to go for a turn 1 Evo Powder. You do need a switch, though, and it's a lot of search, which is really hard to do. It is pretty solid if you pull it off, but it's not like that much better than Technical Machine Evolution, which is definitely more consistent, and it's still quite good, right? So I don't think Villain's really worth running, but it's a moderately interesting card. Then we have Shiinotic. This one, if it's in the active, put your opponent's active to sleep. If you're trying to do some like weird grass control thing, I guess that would be good, but I don't really think that's a deck. So, and then we have Delmise. Nothing really special here. It's pretty not great. Then we have a Zarude here, which can do for 3 is the main attack you want to be looking at. You put all energy attached to this Pokemon into your hand if this to have this attack do 80 more damage. So 160 is good. There's the other Zarude, I think, that sees some play. This sees a decent amount of play, which is 60, 20 more for each energy attached to it. So this Pokemon, in order to be doing more than 160, you're going to need 6 energies. So this is a lot of damage. This Zarude is pretty good in decks that would be playing Zarude, notably Cherub decks, because getting the energy back to your hand is really nice. It's probably a good thing. It's certainly not like that bad. You can just reattach it, and theoretically, if your Cherub's knocked out, then you can't. But hopefully that doesn't happen. Then there's also Rillaboom and stuff with that, and then it fits decently well into those decks as well, though it's not like insanely good. It's still quite good, right? So overall, it's a pretty good card. Right now, Grass is looking like you have some different builds. This one has like Torterra and less energy acceleration. So if you're playing a build without energy acceleration, this isn't good. This one's more control-y, I guess. I haven't, as I said, been paying too much attention to the meta. And then you have stuff like this, which is like the traditional grass list, and you do have the Zarude here. But I do think it is a pretty nice attacker. The other Zarude does have a nice setup attack, but it's not like it's okay. It's not anything absolutely insane. And a lot of lists are looking like Rillaboom Venusaur list, so it slots in pretty nicely. Though, as I said, you don't have, especially with Venusaur, this attack does have a downside, putting the energy back to your hand. But 80 for 3 is not like super bad either. It's okay. Then you have Rabsca and Muchan, which can do massive attacks if you have 3 or fewer cards in hand. Rabsca can do 240 for 1, but I feel like this is ultimately something that you can't do particularly easily. Rabsca's not like that good in grass. It's okay. I don't know, but you have the other Rabsca, but this is good, but having 3 cards in hand, or no, in deck is really not a lot. You can do this, but you're going to be burning so many resources. Ultimately, you also don't have much HP, so ultimately this Rabsca's like not that good. You can maybe toss it into a deck like the one we saw, this one here, where you have not much energy acceleration, and you're mostly focused on relatively cheap attackers, and then just doing damage and stuff. Like, this isn't just cheap attackers, it's just like pretty straightforward. Like Torterra is like your cheap strong attacker, and you do have Luxurious Cape, and you have just lots of ways to do big damage with Torterra. And you can heal it up, you can accelerate energy and heal it up. I guess it's like mostly just Torterra focused, and you are just aiming to do that. And you have some like defensive elements with Vileplume, and you have some ways you're just Torterra, right? So something like this, Rabsca doesn't necessarily fit super well into, but it's like kind of combo-y, so you might be able to get value out of Rabsca, but probably not. It's really hard to do to get. It's hard to do, and it's not really that worth it. The Wuchen, in my opinion, is a little bit better. You can do 20 and then 120 to 2 your points of bench Pokemon, taking 2 prizes, presumably. Or you can do 130 for 3 and milling 3 from your deck, which is not that bad, but it's not great, obviously. Milling 3 is not really something you want to be doing. It does get you closer to Hazardous Greed, though. This is an interesting card that could be tossed into grass decks. We have this pretty generic Ninetales, this pretty generic Paldean-Taurus. It's not that bad. It is 180 to a stage 1. Right now, Fire lists are running... No, it hasn't been played that much. Fire is certainly not the strongest type, but you're looking at pretty solid attackers. Does this slot in? It probably slots in because, or it could certainly slot in. It doesn't definitively slot in, but it is good against stage 1. Stage 1s are certainly okay in the format. It's not like they're completely dominating everything, but they're pretty good. You look at decks like, for example, the Carlos deck. This one's all basics. You're not, or it's almost all basics. You're not really getting any value here. You're getting a little bit of value theoretically, but generally it's a pretty solid attacker. Then we have Ho-Oh, which doesn't really do anything. Castform, not really doing anything. Victini can increase damage of fire evolutions by 10, which is okay, but not that special. Volcarona is pretty generic. Oricorio does accelerate energies, but there are better Pokemon to do that. We have Centiskorch. Centiskorch is actually quite strong and cheap, which is something that you generally don't find with fire. As I said, or as I showed with the fire list, I'm actually going to go to probably not Stellar Crown. Fire has been okay at times. It hasn't been like insane, but it's been okay. And with fire, most of your attackers are a couple of energies, like 2 in a lot of these cases, and they're not super strong either. They're like decently strong, but this Centiskorch is hitting a similar amount of damage. It is damaging your own Pokemon, but they're not like super squishy generally, so it's not great, but it's not a massive issue either. And it does actually damage your Moltres as well, which could be cool. You could do that like simple combo there, and then you're hitting 130 for 1. So this Centiskorch is actually pretty good, and Centiskorch isn't a Pokemon you're necessarily looking to use in fire either. Skeledirge is actually very strong. It does 180 HP, it's immune to effects of attacks, and for 2 energy, it does 60, 20 more for each bench Pokemon. Ultimately, does this slot super well into fire. It's not like super perfect of a fit, but it's not bad. It's definitely a Pokemon that looks kind of like Torterra to me. It does have, not the same level of stage 1 as the Groudon, which is really good, but it is still a very solid attacker that's strong. Not necessarily consistently taking one-shots on everything to the same degree as Torterra, which you can do. It's not dependent on your opponent's Pokemon, but still, this is very strong. Let's say you each have 3 Pokemon in play, then you're hitting 180, which is a lot still. So you should be fine. If you just have a full bench of your own, you're hitting 160, so that it's very good still. Then we have Armarouge, which can do 180 Snipe, which is like kind of cool, but probably not something you're looking to use because you want the other Armarouge. This Serial Edge, there we go. Can do 160 or discard special energy, but probably yet again not what you're looking for. Gouging Fire, on the other hand, is quite good. It does 170 for 3 if your opponent has taken 2 prizes already. A lot of the game, this will be on, and then you're hitting with a very, very solid and efficient attacker. This Gouging Fire just seems like a pretty solid attacker. It is expensive, but it is quite strong as well. The other Entei, the one from Obsidian Flames, has seen some play in fire. There have been multiple good Enteis. Oh, this one doesn't play any of them. Oh, well, there have been a few, and they've been pretty solid. You know the one I'm talking about with... What's it with like a damage ramp attack? It's not super broken, but it's pretty solid. And ultimately, this Gouging Fire is like same attack cost and is hitting harder generally. So this fire attacker is very strong. Then we have Paldean-Taurus, which is like a niche tech attacker. A lot of these are pretty whatever. We do have Whaleren, which is kind of interesting. It does 60, but then during your opponent's next turn, Pokemon that have 2 or less energy attached can attack. So that could be really brutal for certain attackers, but it's not going to be consistently, just rolling over everything either, especially because most decks can get those extra energies on. But then you do have Megaton Fall, which can do 170 for 250 to yourself, so you're not that tanky in that manner, but it's a solid attack. We have Quavel, which can be a draw engine, but it's not much better than Octillery, and Octillery is very good. You're not really looking to toss this into attack. You do have Titan, which has 180 HP and takes 30 less from attacks. This is very tanky, and then you do 150 for 4. It's kind of looking like a Warlord type card, but it's not as good as the Warlords. Iron Bundle does 200 for 350 less for each colorless in your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost. That is pretty strong, consistently hitting at least 100. This isn't a super insane Pokemon, but it seems pretty solid. Chimpowan play can discard a Stadium, which is a thing, but probably not what you're looking for. Magneton actually got Raikou banned, which is this card's really good. Theoretically, you knock yourself out and accelerate 3 energies to your Pokemon, base guarantees to your Pokemon in a way you want. Lightning Pokemon, but that's all your Pokemon. This is really strong for powering up certain attackers. The Pokemon, of course, that you would be looking to power up would be Raikou Amazing Rare, which just this pairs perfectly with, but you can't do that. But still, you compare this with like Electivire or something. Lightning's energy acceleration is solid, but ultimately, it's not a deck with an insane draw engine. You have Zebstrika, which I really like, but it's ultimately not a card that is always going to draw you the cards you need and get things set up the way you want. So Magneton is a card you can burst just to guarantee power up one attacker, essentially, and it has decent synergy with Zebstrika as well. Then we have but it does give up a prize, but it's still pretty good. And also the evolution line's good. Magneton, there are some good ones, but there's some good Magnezones and stuff, so it's a pretty good Pokemon. Then we have Rotom, which can discard all items and tools from your opponent's hand, or do 20 for each energy attached to your opponent's active. This is a pretty solid attack, not something that's going to be just absolutely winning you game after game, but it is pretty disruptive for a lightning style control deck, and could really, really hurt your opponent. And having the versatility of the other attack is nice as well. Then we have Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko is also quickly mention Kilowattrel. This is a card that is not that good, but it's not terrible either. But it's something you're probably not looking to play. But then we have Tapu Koko, which can do 180 if you're down on prizes. This is very good. Also, you can you have like a pretty underwhelming setup attack. The big issue with this Tapu Koko is that, of course, looking at lightning decks, you can see that what is it? Here we go, looking at Lightning. Oh, with so many good Lightning lists. Lightning obviously is going to be playing Tapu Koko, presumably this Flying Flip one, though there are some other ones that are good and they have free retreat. And this one, does not have free retreat, which is a bit of a downer for it, but it's still a very strong attacker. And Lightning right now doesn't have super strong attackers. Looking at this list, we see the Raikou, which is like the Entei I mentioned, and it's okay, but it's not. It's not insane. And then you have some really strong spread attackers, but those are spread attackers. And you have Thundurus as well. Thundurus is hitting big damage, but it is doing massive self-damage and also isn't hitting as much damage as Tapu Koko either. Tapu Koko ultimately, I think, is a really good lightning Pokemon. Then we have Togekiss, which can, when you take knockouts, you on a coin flip take an extra prize, which is kind of insane. This Togekiss it just seems really, really strong. Then we have Smoochum. It's kind of like Shining Mew, but that accelerates special energy. This is cool because it accelerates 2 basic psychic energy from your deck to your bench Pokemon. That's pretty nice. I think Smoochum's pretty good. You are giving up a prize most likely because it only has 30 HP, but it's not bad either at all. It's definitely a pretty solid card. We have this Latios, which is pretty whatever. Then we have Uxie, which does 20 to each your opponent's Pokemon in damage counters. This is pretty nice. It's just a solid spread attacker. There is the Azelf, which is played in, in Psychic decks, and it's similar but weaker. It does puts damage counters on Pokemon that already have damage on them. So this is much better than the Mesprit. It's pretty gimmicky. Azelf, though, this can do 10 more for each damage counter on all your opponent's Pokemon. It's okay. We've seen other Pokemon like it. It's not terrible, but not great. Cofagrigus is a really interesting, put 6 damage counters on each Pokemon that has an ability, both yours and your opponent's. This is a really nice tool for spread Psychic decks that can be a big threat and can be a problem. Meowstic, ultimately not very good in this format. The Dene, if you're looking at some Psychic control-y deck. You have the Xerneas, Oricorio. These are like generic cards. The Oricorio is almost the same as the Fire one, which it's noticeably better in Fire because Psychic just has way stronger tools in general. Tapu Lele can do big damage with certain combo setups, but it's pretty awkward, I think. Then you have Indeedee, which can heal, but not great. You got like a Spathrat Evolve or something that seems pretty bad. And Fluttermane, which, again, probably not doing too much. You have Annihilate, which can do 130 for 1 and then knock both actives out, but ultimately there's another Annihilate that, in my opinion, is really good. Lilian Torres is kind of gimmicky. Donphan's kind of interesting. It can do 120 for 3, and then take 100 less next turn if you discard 2 energies from it, which can be a double energy, double turbo, twin, or double colorless. So there are a bunch of options there. Ultimately, I don't think this card is quite good enough, especially because there's another pretty good Donphan, like a very good Donphan, but it's not a bad card either. It's an interesting one. Gastrodon can turn off the abilities of benched stage 2 Pokemon. This is okay. Has really high retreat cost, pretty bad like stats in general. Not terrible, but not great. Certainly a little disappointing. But Gastrodon, it's an okay card. Then we have Excadrill, which can do 140 for a metal and a fighting. Ultimately, this seems kind of awkward. There's some good Excadrills in the format as well. Not like super broken ones, but some ones with really high upside. Looking at fighting, you see attackers like you see lots of different things. You see some spread decks, which are a little weird because you have this combo-y thing going on. Then you see a bunch of basic attackers, and so putting in stage 1 attackers is sometimes a little awkward. We see the Lucario as the stage 1 attacker, but that's stronger than these other ones. So Excadrill ultimately probably not what you want to be playing. Landorus is pretty generic. Passimian can do it does 20 for each of your benched basic Pokemon. Theoretically, or each of your basic don't need to be benched. Theoretically, could be insanely strong with like Skyfield, but that seems pretty niche. Probably not a great card. Not a terrible card though. A moderately interesting one. That's synergy with some, fighting decks, but not with all the stuff. You need to be only basics. This Graplocked is, if it's damage, it can do big damage for only 1. This honestly synergizes pretty well with the Donphan, so this is a cool card, though not insane. We do have Glimora next, which says your opponent's active is now poisoned, and then they can attach energy to it, which is really goofy. This card is pretty bad, but it's a funny one. Then we have Koraidon. Koraidon is honestly the card that inspired me to make this. Right now, fighting is looking a bit like. By the way, I'm looking at Limitless, so to find these decks, I'm going to open up all the lists, see if we do see an ancient one. This one, yeah, this has some ancient things in it, but it's not super ancient. Like there are some other ancient Pokemon as well. Well, there's Slitherwing. Why are they playing? Oh yeah, this Slitherwing is like just kind of okay. There's another Slitherwing that does massive amounts of self damage, which isn't great. This one plays the Great Tusk, which isn't in this list. Great Tusk needs to be synergized with some way to get damage on it. Really, that's what you're looking to do. Team Magnum is Great Ball. What exactly is this? Oh, this is the list with. I know this gets a. Oh, it gets out. No, honestly, I'm not exactly sure the purpose of Team Magnum's Great Ball in this list. I've not looked at these lists before, but you do have Great Tusk. You have this Slitherwing which you could play, or this one. You have Sandy Shocks as well, and these are all like okay Pokemon. And then you also have. You have the new Koraidon. The new Koraidon is really good, saying if one of your other ancient Pokemon used an attack during your last turn, it does 150 more. So that's 180 for 2 colorless. That's absolutely insane. This Koraidon I think is really good, opening up ancient fighting type box style decks as something that could be a really strong deck, really scary because it's just a 1 energy attachment that does 180. That's pretty insane. We have Grafaiai here. Oh, you have this like Mills Wireless or something, which you could do. Grafaiai is pretty bad. Alolan Dugtrio is a really weird trio cheat. What? If you don't have exactly, so you need 3 cards. It does 120 for free. With 3 cards in hand, that's like not super hard to do, but also the upsides. It's like an interesting attacker. Metal. What's Metal looking like? I've not really been paying attention to that type much at all. We got So yeah, you got Bronzong, you got like different attackers, you got pretty like solid basic attackers, and yeah, that's about it. So pretty simple, straightforward deck. Oh, these are by the same person, so it's the same list. And then we have this list, yeah. So you could play it with like different basic attackers. We have the Arcaludon. You got some different interesting things going on here, but ultimately nothing super crazy. Alolan Dugtrio doesn't really synergize with it, but it doesn't have anti-synergy either. It's just a kind of whatever card. And what is this card? I don't even know what this one is. Oh, okay, that one. Yeah, I've not actually seen that card before. And then you have, yeah, this last list. You do have like stage 1s as well that you're looking at, but they're like pretty strong, powerful stage 1 Pokemon and basics, and like all your Pokemon are just power hitters, setup Pokemon. Like you don't have these moderate poking style attackers, and you're not really looking for that super like a ton. It's kind of awkward putting yourself into the 3-card hand all the time as well. It's not necessarily the best situation for you. So ultimately, it's a pretty mediocre Pokemon. It does have some interesting upside as well as some mediocre upside. It's cool, but it's not something that you're expecting to make a massive splash. We got this mediocre Skarmory, this mediocre Red Steel. Theoretically, could be hitting a bunch. We got Bronzong, which is not going to see play because Bronzong is insane. Okay, yeah, here I go. This one plays Bronzong. A lot of the lists play Bronzong. There's multiple different really good Bronzongs. Got this setup Klefki, which isn't great. We got this Duraludon, which is okay, I guess. We have Goldengo, which you can't play. And we got Iron Crown, which can do 120 for 2 if you're putting as 3 or more bench Pokemon. This is a solid card. Definitely one that you could be putting into metal decks. And there's a Dragon Pokemon. We don't have super great cards. We have this like setup Dialga, but ultimately probably not great putting 2 cards from your deck on top of your deck. And then we have, I guess, Appleton 130 for 2 is not bad, but it's kind of awkward. And then with the Double Dragon, it's not awkward, but otherwise it kind of is. And then you got this Flapple as a finisher, but that's not really what you're looking for. In terms of colorless, we have this Kecleon, which can like stall, which is kind of interesting with coin flips. And then you can have this Oranguru, which allows you to make Pokemon weak to colorless, but probably not what you're looking to do. And so ultimately, there are a few types getting some really good stuff, and then a lot of types which are just taking what they can get. Counter Gain is not a new card to GLC, but it is a new card to Standard. It's a very good Standard card, but for GLC, I mean, it's good in GLC too, but it's not a new card. Then we have Clebin's Quick Wit, healing 60 from each of your Lightning Pokemon. This is theoretically really strong if you can put yourself in a position where your opponent's slowly chipping away. Maybe they are a spread deck and chipping away at your different Pokemon. That is theoretically really good, but ultimately something that isn't that common. Like, it comes up some, I guess in the mirror would be kind of nice, but ultimately a bit of a niche supporter. We also have the berries for the different types, though they're not that good, to be honest. Then we have some pretty sketchy item cards here. They can only play turn 1. We got Ace Specs, we got Deduction Kit, Cyrano, which doesn't do anything. Dragon Elixir heals 60 from your active dragon. That's pretty good. I feel like this will be a card popped into Dragon decks for some solid healing. We have Drayton, which is like a mediocre supporter, letting you just see some cards. You have Duskball, which is now its first time being printed in this format. Gravity Mountain, reducing the HP of stage 2s, is pretty interesting for some decks which aren't able to hit quite enough damage, but are kind of close. And we spread decks as well. Lively Stadium, increasing basic Pokemon's HP is nice. You have Leech's Appeal as another Gust supporter on only basics, but it's an okay supporter. We have Surfer as another solid supporter, and then we do have Time as this really goofy supporter. Meddling Memo is like a weird trader. The traders aren't like, they're kind of weird. And the Jasmine's Gaze is this defensive supporter that's not super strong, though I guess yet again good against spread. Overall, though, the card that I'm most excited for in GLC is the new Koraidon. I've scrolled past it. Definitely a really, really scary threat and something that could cause issues for people to play against. Not like it's game breaking or anything like that, but it is very, very strong. But tell me what you think about these cards in GLC, which of these you're most excited for. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.